All right, hi. This is a quick how-to and introduction video to Ruckus Unleashed. A lot of people like to look at Ruckus access points. They're fantastic access points for small, large enterprise. They also can be used as at a home lab. For Unleashed is the architecture where a single AP becomes the controller. And so this is kind of a walkthrough on what that is. My access points are running an older firmware release because I have an older device. So if I look at the access points, I have an H510 and I have an R600. And the R600 is so old that it'll only handle an older firmware. So that's what I'm running. I'm currently running the firmware 200.7.10.202.121, which is pretty old. There is a 200.9 firmware release, so there's a lot of features that you guys might see on a newer model access point running newer firmware that I don't have in this video. I apologize for that. That said, Ruckus is known for their antenna tech and their great cell coverage, so this can be a fantastic option for you. When I migrated from Ubiquiti access points to Ruckus, the single R600 was covering what 3 Ubiquitis were handling. Those are the Unify ACAP lights. So again, you can run up to 25 APs in the Unleashed. So I have this H510 is running as my master, and the R600 is basically taking cues from it. And if this drops down, then this R600 would become the master, and that would kind of roll over. And that's set up in down here in admin services, but I'll kind of walk through that. So starting from the top, the H510 has a 4-port switch built into it, or a 5-port switch depending on who you talk to, but it does show 5 ports and one of them is connected. The port 5 is the uplink port on the back, so that's its connection upstream. It does have an IP of 214, and it has a gateway, and it shows that the DNS and the internet is showing is connected. So this is kind of more or less, are you connected to the internet? Under Wi-Fi networks, you're able to see which SSIDs you have created. So I have an R600 SSID on one VLAN, I have my Packer guest on another, and I have an R600 slow. And I'll kind of show you how I set those up. So you can create a new, obviously from here, you can also kind of look at what I've done. So R600, if I go into edit, you can see that it's a standard SSID. You can also do guest access or hotspot if you wanted to do something like that for onboarding. I didn't want to do guest access for my house because that was just too much. But I have just a standard, PSK, so WPA2, open authentication. I mean, I could do MAC address list, or I could do EAP if I wanted to at home. You can also set up an internal or external accounting server to assist with that. So this is all pretty straightforward. But if you want to go into advanced, you can do zero IT activation, which takes a little bit of setup, but then it makes it pretty easy. Don't recommend that for small home lab type stuff. Dynamic PSK is also kind of fun, where you can have a unique PSK on the same SSID for different clients. So if you wanted to kick a certain user off, where everybody's not using the same PSK, it allows you to single out a user and block them out. At least that's just one way of doing it. And again, you can have an internal list or an external list, so it can connect to somebody else and manage it that way. WLAN priority low or high, you can hide the SSID if you want to. This is on the native VLAN, but you can also tag out a VLAN, and I have done that on the other SSID. I'll show you that. You can max out a number of clients per radio if you have, if you want to balance the load. You can also have service schedules, which is pretty fun. Access control. I can't talk today. Access control is kind of cool because you can set up rate limiting. You can do layer 2, 3, 4, or device policy ACLs, which are really cool. I actually created one of these, and I'll show you that actually further down. But device policies, you can say, I want all iPads to be rate limited to 2 megabits, and I want all Windows Chromebooks to be full speed, or I want Android phones to be this speed, or I want to block all X type of device, which is kind of fun. So if you wanted to have specific policies that are spelled out to specific devices, that's where you do it here. Layers 3 and 4 is kind of cool. You can do a lot in here. obviously it's got DNS and DHCP allowed, but you're able to go in here. You can allow or deny different types of addresses, applications, protocols, ports. So if you wanted to play with something like that, you can definitely do that. And then application visibility is kind of nice, where you can say, different types of applications are allowed or denied. So we're going to say, I'm going to rate limit instant messaging, or I'm going to deny instant messages, or I'm going to QoS on VoIP or something of that nature. I did set up an application policy, and I'll show you that again later, but this is really nice that you're able to do things like that. So if you wanted to get really granular on things that are out of the box that you can work with, VoIP services, there's a million different ways to play with that. But anyway, it's pretty powerful. Radio control is what I like to play with. So if you have multiple APs in an environment where you want to make your roaming easier, you can enable fast BSS transition. That's the 802.11r. You can also include the neighbor list report in the broadcasts, which is also a nice thing to have. Background scanning, where the APs do the scanning. You can load balance, where the APs will de-auth a client if they're getting overbalanced. They can do band balancing, where they notice the client's on the 2.4 band, but it has but the AP believes that the client can operate on the 5 gigahertz, then it'll actually de-auth on the 2.4 in hopes that the client joins the 5. It doesn't always work. I usually leave them off. 802.11d is another roaming technology, but you can also specify that you only want the SSID, and this is my R600, on a specific frequency. So you can say it exists everywhere, it's 2.4 only, or it's 5 only. So kind of cool. I have this SSID as 5 gigahertz only. On my guest SSID, if I go in here, now I have under access VLAN, this is VLAN 5. So this is tagged out, and then upstream I just have a separate SSID for this. So this is on a separate IP subnet. Radio control for here is 2.4 only. Again, I allow all these other things here, but I don't have enough APs that I worry about that for roaming. I don't have a whole lot else here, but I do have wireless client isolation. So if you want each client to not be able to talk to each other on the same VLAN or subnet, you can specify subnets, but I'm basically saying, hey, if you join my guest SSID, you can't be pinging around because I don't trust you. It's kind of an IoT subnet. So all my IoT devices are there, and then the low priority, kids' phones and things like that live on this network. It's a nice thing to have. I like the client isolation. And then R600 slow is basically the same thing as R600, but I went under radio control, and this is 2.4 only. So if I have a device that joins this SSID, I'm able to specify 2.4 only, and then if I wanted to, I could go into access control, and I can make device policies or application policies, and I have a lot of controls, almost firewalling at the Wi-Fi level, which is a really handy thing to have. So with that done, let's go into clients, and you can kind of see what you do there. So I have cameras, I have Rokus, I have phones, I have an Alexa. You're able to kind of go in at a pretty high level, and you can see the details of a client. You see what you've received, how it's authenticated, if there's transmit drops due to retry failure, how long it's been connected. Pretty basic, but good details to have. It seems to think that it's having an excellent connection. Again, did I see? Yeah, there's no MCS information or signal strength here, but all in all, it seems to be working pretty well. And unfortunately, most of my IoT devices are 2.4, so you'll see them on channels 1, 6, or 11. You can go in and rename devices, and I've done that. So this name column is something that I create, or I had to put some work into, but you can say like my power meter is joined to my downstairs H510, which is kind of funny, but that's fine. You can see what's going on, and interesting, it's a 40 megahertz channel. That's odd. Whatever. I'll fix that later. You can mark a device as a favorite whenever it joins or leaves. You get an alert of that. I'm not sure why that's helpful, but if you had a device that if it dropped off was a critical item, you could have that taken care of. columns are added or removed here. I usually like to have total number of devices shown so you don't have to go to multiple pages. There's all that with all the columns. Troubleshooting is kind of cool. So I can go to my Roku, for example, and go into troubleshooting, and I can start a connectivity trace, which is really cool. So the idea is I de-auth the system, and then I watch it rejoin, and I get to see every step in that process. And if there's something going on where maybe my DHCP server's down, you might see multiple DHCPs, but they requested and it hacked and it's now connected and life is good. So kind of cool. I like this visibility, which is pretty cool. You're able to see which SSID and on which radio and how it's all working. So it's good to have, good to know. You can also run speed tests, but that does require that the client device has something like the Ruckus SpeedFlex app installed. So I've got a phone and I could run speed test on it, and you'd be able to see how fast that phone is connected to the AP, but I don't currently have that set up. So one other thing is that this and this are the new Android, 12 devices, and they have a unique MAC address every time they connect. And even if I tell them to keep the same static MAC address, they still seem to roam around on me. I haven't played a lot around with this too much, but that appears to be what's going on with that. And I'm not concerned about it. It doesn't keep me up at night, so I don't worry about fixing that problem because they still connect. So if it ain't broke, leave it alone. Again, we looked at access points earlier, but I can see that my H510 is operating as a master. The R600 is operating as a secondary device. And I can see most of my clients are on this R600, and the H510 downstairs has a whopping 1 client. And I can say, well, what's this? This is the power meter. And then what SSIDs is it broadcasting? I can say, well, it's running all these SSIDs. And then I can look at how many clients and what the traffic is, which is kind of nice to see. I can also go in and edit the AP itself. I can give it a different name. I can give it a latitude. I can say for 2.4 which channels it's allowed to run. I can also specify what it's supposed to be doing for 2.4 radios versus 5 radios. Network, if I want to give it, IPv4, specify the IP, or if I want to do Buncher Gateway or different port settings or anything of that nature, I could definitely play with things, which is kind of cool, right? So here I can specify what these different, because this device has physical ports on it. So if I scroll down, I've got port 1, 2, 3, 4, and WANing, which is port 5. I can specify and I can say, you know what, this is going to be an access port with port 5. And this is going to be an access port with, VLAN 15. And then this is a trunk port. And then this is general. And this is going to be untagged 1, but then maybe other VLAN, I don't know. Anyway, so if you wanted to play with that, but I just leave it as trunk. And if you wanted to do DHCP option 82, which is the vendor, it's the vendor specific what do you call it? It's a section. It allows a specific Ruckus device to be able to look up and see the controller within a DHCP request. So it requests on DHCP, and then the DHCP ACK that comes back through includes specific information onto where not only the DHCP server exists, but if there's a Smart Zone or Unleashed controller in the environment, it'll include that information to the AP, which is kind of cool. And then 802.1x, if you want to have anything of that nature, you can specify that as well. I haven't played with this too much, but it's nice that you can play around with this on the port settings. So kind of cool to see. Again, I spell out which radio channels are available in my area. I'm only running 20 megahertz wide channels because I'm not worried about crazy high rates. I just like to have nice and reliable connection, and 20 megahertz is better for that. Same thing with 2.4. I'm just 1, 6, and 11 just because I like my APs to work. And I don't have anything else unique on here. I do specify reduced transmit power, although I am full on 5 gigahertz. So there's that. Other things to look at, last but not least, this is where you start to see your your value in an Unleashed system, in my mind, is this system, services, and administration. So for system, this obviously, my home lab, and this is my preferred master. I can say, I have no preference, or A versus B. You can have an SMTP server. I highly recommend that you throw one of these in. It's so nice to be able to have alarms go off and have a Gmail system. There's a lot of how-tos on how to get a Gmail device as our Gmail account as an SMS server. So I just have a cheap, a Harry SMTP at Gmail. I don't even remember when I put this together, but it works. And if I hit test, it actually works. And I've been getting alarms through this thing. So feel free to copy that. I do have an IP setting. So this is unique to the AP. So this 214 is uniquely my AP. You can have it in gateway mode where the device kind of is a router as well. But I don't have that turned on. That's not a setting I was currently interested in. I have a router/firewall device that's upstream of this. So it's also creating VLAN 1 and VLAN 5 and so on and so forth on my network. And that's 1.1 for me. Management interface would be if you had multiple devices like I do, and you were going to have them failing around and didn't have a preferred master, but you always wanted to have a unique IP for management purposes, you can have that stand up. And I don't have that spelled up because that doesn't matter to me. But if you want to play with that, this is where you do that. You can have your Ruckus devices via DHCP server. So you can kind of spell that out, and you can set that up here. You can create scopes, and you can, so on and so forth. But I don't worry about that. That's not anything that I worry about. I think you have to be in gateway mode for that to start doing it. But then you'll have your clients populate here, and then you can reserve and spell out, static IPs basically in the range. System time is your NTP. That's how I have mine working. Country code is important. So if you're in the United States, you want to keep this as United States, so you get the proper channels. If you optimize for performance, then you're going to get all of the DFS channels in 5 gigahertz. So again, if you jump back into access point, you click on an AP, you go to edit, you go to 5 gigahertz, you'll have all of the channels. If you optimize for compatibility, you're just going to get like 36 to 64, and then I think it's 153 to 165. So you'll miss out on all these fantastic channels over here that your neighbors are probably not running, which means that your chance of having interference on your channel is a whole lot higher if you're not running the right setting. So there, run back down here, and here I was in country code. So I just optimized for performance, which is really good. Roles is where you have separate users, limited admins, things of that nature. Users is the same thing, where you kind of, now that you create more than one role, you have users that have different roles, and then you can turn on and off mesh, and you can turn on and off within mesh. You can have broadcast filters. Nothing that I worry on. I have uplinks. I have Cat5 running through my house, which makes my wife super happy. It doesn't, but whatever. AAA, so if you want to run an internal authentication server, you can do that. You can also link out to an external one. So if you wanted to go to an authentication server that's not within, you can say radius and port 1812, or if you had another 1813, you can connect out to that and test that out, and that's how that works. And then obviously you can test the local or external once you spell it out, and then you can run those tests. Access control is kind of the same thing we saw under the SSID, where you spell out device access or isolation whitelists or layer 3, level 2, or layer 2. If you wanted to spell out and say, you know what, I want this MAC address to be able to talk to this IP address to do a thing, you can spell out whitelists where you have certain IPs that are allowed to talk to certain things. So if you had, for example, the guest network, but you wanted everybody on the guest network to be able to talk to the printer, then you allow a client device to join your guest SSID on the specific VLAN that also has the printer, and they're not able to talk to each other, but they can specifically talk to the printer because you've whitelisted. That's how you do this. Again, device access policies, I want all iPads to be able to be rate limited to X. Layer 3, layer 4 is, port blocking type of applications and things like that. Layer 2 and Mac access control, you can block things like that. Applications is kind of cool. You can see what people have been doing. Clearly on my network, I have a lot of Netflix. And then, I've got Windows mobile device. My wife's or my daughter's computer is really enjoying some internet right now. And you can change that up to, application or port or last hour or last 24 hours. You can create policies. So I made one, and I'll just kind of show you what this looks like. So I have YouTube rate limited, Netflix rate limited, and Plex rate limited. Now if I scroll over, it's limiting the uplink and just the downlink to 4 megabits. So if that's something that you wanted to do, you can definitely do that. And again, you just create one. You can QoS rate limit or deny. And again, system-based is nice. And then you just come in here and you say like media streaming, and you have a million different types of things you can go for. Unfortunately, it's not alphabetized. But what I find is if you're looking for something like, I don't know, Amazon, you just hit A few times, you'll get all the A's. So there was Amazon Prime Music. I'm sure there's another Amazon in there somewhere. Amazon Instant Video. So if you wanted to rate limit, let's say we want to rate limit system defined media streaming, and we'll say downlink, and we'll say 4 megabits as well, because I'm mean. And we'll save that. And now I have YouTube, Netflix, Plex, and Amazon all rate limited to 4 megabits in my environment because I'm mean and that's what I choose to do. You can also have IP-based things, port-based, so kind of a lot of control that you might not get from another vendor. Maybe you do, who knows? Bonjour, I don't have a lot of Apple devices, so I don't worry about this. Dynamic PSK we talked about earlier, so you can have internal generation or external PSK lists where a MAC address joining a certain SSID will join with a specific PSK that's unique to it, and then you want to kick that one device off. You can do that by just deactivating that specific PSK that's tied to that one MAC address. And if that MAC address, the wireless client with that MAC address tries to join that SSID with the wrong PSK, it won't work. They're handy to have. They take a little bit of work to set up. They're nice to have. Another option would be setting up the guest access services where things just work. I set this up a while ago, but I don't run it currently. It's just, for me, it was too much work at my house to worry about. But if you wanted to play with this, there's a lot of how-tos on this. It's nothing that I set up or worried about. You can have it send an email or an SMS, but the SMS does require a third-party service in order to send SMS out of the system. Hotspot services, I don't have this for onboarding. Radio control, this is how the APs reach out into your environment and how they look for interference and choose a better channel. So I use background scanning for 2.4 and channel fly, which is vendor specific. So this is a Ruckus technology, the channel fly for 5 gigahertz, and it's recommended for the 2.4. I do not have transmit power specified out on the AP side. I just manually statically set my 2.4 at half transmit power and my 5 gigahertz at full on both APs. And then background scanning, the interval of how often that happens, you can spell that out. You can go per SSID, or you can just globally set it here. Load balancing, I have that off. I don't like band balancing either. And then, of course, if you're in the US, you have to have radar avoidance pre-scanning, and those are only in the DFS channels. That's the Uni 2E and 2 space only. That's those 5 gigahertz channels that we talked about that they're in the center. So again, I go here and I go edit, and then I go 5. It's all of these that are higher than 64 and lower than 153. So all this goodness, 100 to 149, that's a lot of channels that your neighbors are probably not running. And if you are in the US, you can deploy on these, but there are specific limits on how loud you can transmit. Even if you have transmit power full, maybe your AP can transmit at 23 dBm or something like that, as an example. But on these DFS channels, they might have transmit power limited to 15 dBm or something like that because it's a DFS channel. Those are not things that you can play with. That's FCC rules, but just know that they exist. So your transmit power on 36 is not the same as your transmit power on 124. So yeah, if you're ever noticing low transmit power, check your channel. Whips is kind of cool. So this is like if you ever remember hearing about the Marriott hotels was de-authing everybody that was running their own SSID within their hotels, and they got in trouble because the FCC said that in the US, this is unlicensed frequency and you don't get to own the space. Well, if you want to play with that in your house, you can. You might get in trouble if you start de-authing all your neighbors, but I do have protect my network against excessive requests, and if I have clients that keep repeated authentication failures for 30 seconds. So if you want to keep spamming away on my network, it's going to be pretty slow because it's 30 seconds. Right? I enable report for rogue devices, but I'm only reporting SSID spoofing, same network, and MAC spoofing. So if I notice that, then I will report and I'll get an email on that, and I can protect from rogue access points. If I see a rogue DHCP server because I'm also running, I can get that report. But rogue devices, I'm not de-authing any of these, but it is listing everything that it sees in the environment, which is kind of nice to see. Last but not least is preferences and administration. So not much on the preferences of your language and your password. If you want to upgrade to a different piece of software, again, I'm running an older code. I'm on 200.7, but if I could go up to 200.9, I'd have a lot more bells and whistles. But if I did, my R600 would stop working. So I'm going to not do that because I like my R600. I just want a newer one. The newer one, it went from 600 to 610, and then 610 to 650, which just came out recently. And the 650 is the 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6 AP. Diagnostics is kind of cool. You'll be able to see events and alarms that exist on your controller. You can specify out what type of events you want to look through. If you want to look through your logs, you can look at your debug info and you can see what type of information is important to you. You can send your logs out, but you can also, so if you want to look at the AP logs, you can do that, system logs there. Remote troubleshooting allows Ruckus to come into your controller. I don't have that set up. Client troubleshooting is kind of cool. This is the same thing as when you were clicking on a client and you hit troubleshoot and it disconnects them and then it watches them reconnect to try to make sure that DNS is working, DHCP is working, the four-way handshake happens, all that. You click on here, you have to put in the MAC address of the client that you care about. Certificate, I'm not using a third-party signed SSL certificate. I'm just using the self-signed certificate within the AP. If you wanted to change that out, you can generate the request, import the certificate, and obviously manage that key here. Network connectivity is where you try to ping something and you verify that your AP is able to talk to things. And you can run a ping test or you can trace route to different things. Kind of nice to have if there was something internal to your network that you thought might be important. Maybe you have a syslog server, maybe you have SNMP or anything like that going on. That exists. Network management, I do have, silliness here. I do have SNMP turned on, and I get some pretty cool information off of that. If you have multi-site manager, so you're able to have an unleashed site, let's say your home, or let's say you have a chain of small offices and you want to run Ruckus Unleashed there, you can. And you can run an unleashed multi-site manager, which is super cool. So you don't need to have, you basically have this cloud-based manager for all your unleashed sites. And you spell out how they're all going to be sending their data up, and then you can manage multiple sites and multiple unleashed systems from one global console, which is really handy. Alarm notification, again, you have to have your email site, your email server configuration done, but then you spell out what's important to you, and then you have your email address, and hopefully that all happens for you. But I get emails from this all the time and I find it useful, so maybe you do too. Mobile app, you can have a mobile app. I find it kind of handy to have that. Nice to be able to see what's going on in your network remotely. You can create new SSIDs. You can block a client, things of that nature, all from the mobile app. Really handy, really nice to have. I think almost everybody by now has one. Remote user control, you just allow, spell out who's allowed and who's unallowed to do different things. So that's it. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys. If you guys are looking at Unleashed and you're kind of wondering about how to manage things, yeah, it can be pretty straightforward and pretty easy, but you can also do a little bit more. If there's anything specific in here that I didn't cover that you want to get more information on, or you want to see me set up a specific, if there's something I didn't set up, didn't walk through at high enough detail, let me know. I'm happy to create that and run through that with you. Otherwise, thank you and have a great day.